Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Eyes Show Live. Today is January 19th, 2025. I'm Brian. I'm joined by Beth and Andy. And I don't know. Welcome, guys. I feel like this is like a hot start to this one today. It's a holiday in the United States for a lot of people. I'm off today. So I've been, have a out of ordinary morning, which always throws me off a bit. And as you guys know, I've been playing a lot with Cloud Code. Yes, we're going to probably talk about Cloud Code more this week. But I've been playing with it on the side and building and stuff. So I've been doing a lot on that as well. But welcome to you guys. Getting kicked off with some of the news. I know one of the news items I saw, I don't know if you guys saw, was that ChatGPT Go. Are you guys familiar with what that is?
No.
So Go is what they had initially, I believe it was India where they first did it. And it was meant to be the low cost, one step up tier from free. And it costs whatever the equivalent was in there. And it was very successful. And they rolled it out to a whole bunch of other countries. But surprisingly, they also rolled it out to the US. So you can now, above free, but below pro, right? Or plus, below plus, which is still the $20. It's the one I'm on. I think Karl has the $200 version, maybe. I'm not sure even anymore, but I don't. I have the $20 version of ChatGPT. Now there is an $8 version of ChatGPT, which I'll be honest with you, I might actually move my daughter down to. There's probably makes sense. I don't know if I ever. No, I don't think I ever switched over and actually made our family a team in ChatGPT. I never got around to that. So she has her own account. She uses it from time to time. Based on what I could see, it's exactly what you expect it to be. It's more than free, but less than $20 as far as where your capacity is, where your how many chats you could do, how many images, things like that. So you might get image or may get token capped. Things like this. I looked at it briefly on the website. I did not see anything that struck me. I don't think you get thinking and some deeper reasoning and things that you would expect to be at a higher level. This really is just meant to be a starter plan, if you like. That's a little bit more than free. So
it is.
I know a lot of people that could use that.
It is ad supported, so the ads that are coming in are for free and this Go level. And then there's lots of information about they're not going to have ads and you're asking health questions or a series of other things. And I haven't really seen people talk about seeing ads and that sort of reaction. I've seen people talking about potentially seeing ads. And one of the things that I saw in terms of that, as people are I don't know what is ads going to do, was someone saying, hey, I remember when Google Ads was first doing something and you could get eyeballs on your thing for pennies, right? I remember when Facebook first started having ads and you could get your eyeballs on your thing for pennies. So however you feel about ads in general, it may also be a really great opportunity to get in.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, well, if you want, let's maybe go through some news and maybe, I don't know if anybody has a bigger topic for today. I would be curious to hear what your guys' take is. And also folks in the comments, if you even want to start commenting now, and we'll sort of summarize these maybe in a little bit. That way everybody has some time to participate. But we have lots of people already in our comments on YouTube. If you want to join us any given day, you can always go to the YouTube channel. Yes, you can actually leave a comment from LinkedIn. We always tell you, hey, if you really want to be part of the conversation, do it on YouTube because you'll see previous comments. And frankly, it's just a better situation. So by all means, if you're around at 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and you want to join the conversation with all these other lovely people who are in there right now, then go do that if you happen to be with us while we're live. If not, you can always leave a comment. Comments are a little weird on lives. They disappear, they reappear, as Beth told us. But anyway, maybe we'll just punt to a little bit later in the show. But I'd be curious. I don't know that I have a definitive thought on it, but maybe it's something we can just kind of kick around later, which is, what is our thought on, and I wouldn't just say ChatGPT. I would say what if it's Gemini? What if it's Claude? What if any of those freer or lower tiers also start coming with ads? What do we think about that? Do we feel like that's an invasion? Is it like a Facebook thing? It's well, nothing is truly free, right? That's the whole thing with Facebook is Facebook's thing was we will never charge you for Facebook. That Mark Zuckerberg put that line in the sand a decade or more ago, maybe 2 decades ago at this point, and said, we will never charge you for Facebook. And of course, as everybody learned, you pay for Facebook, you just do it differently, right? But you don't actually trade dollars. And so is this what we're looking at? Is this the new model as AI becomes a tool that everybody has open all the time? Be curious. So anyway, that was my first news story. Let's throw it around. Beth, what was some of the news stories you had from over the weekend?
So I don't know if we talked about this last week because it did not, I think it was announced over the weekend, but maybe like Thursday or Friday. NBC Sports announced that the Winter Olympics will use technology created in Japan, developed in Japan, will be used by NBC Sports during live coverage starting this year. So you'll be able to focus on player tracking so viewers can focus on their favorite athletes. You'll be able to do that. And that feels like the first time that it's come to a kind of sports event that like a bunch of different groups of people would all be connecting. So it's not just basketball fans, it's not just hockey fans, it's not just football fans. And sorry, other football fans, yes, in addition to these football fans, because that's what it's called in Europe. But those kinds of things I think are interesting. We knew that Meta was developing that kind of technology where you could like pick a section or a character out of a video and then watch it as it moves, or a ball or something. But now we're going to see this in the Olympics, and that's pretty exciting.
Well, I assume that means you get that feature if you're watching on your desktop, not on your TV, because it would have to have some kind of local processing in order to create that focus, if you will, on a single player, which isn't that difficult. You're just changing the framing of the view of a common stream. But it doesn't, I don't think that's going to work on your TV if you're watching the Olympics on your TV.
I suspect what's going to happen is that the newscasters are going to be able to do that, right? So they'll be our proxies for using this technology, being able to zoom in and out, but we'll see.
Yeah. Eventually it'll get down to the TVs because it's not hard, in the next generation of very inexpensive TVs. That's one of the amazing progressions that we've observed in these last 20 years is that you can get a killer high resolution TV for under $500. It's like amazing.
I mean, 2 Christmases ago, not this Christmas, but previous Christmas, I bought an 80-inch TV that's hanging on my wall in the other room, and it's I don't know, it's 4K, whatever it is. It's not the best of the best with all the OLED and whatever, but it's plenty fine, and it was definitely not $500. So yeah, like.
No, right now you'll pay $2,500 for the state of the art.
Sure,
but
the
in your house, you'll get a perfectly great viewing experience on a massive TV for half the cost of an iPhone. So yeah,
yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah,
it's Viztrick, VIZTRICK AIDI Tech. So Viztrick AID Tech. Developed by Japan's Nippon Television Network, going to be used by NBC Sports. So yeah, Andy, I think
I misunderstood that as a move towards personal selection of your focus on the television feed, and that's not. It'll allow
dream big.
Studio. It's coming. It's coming soon.
Coming to you in September. That's going to be the drop, right? Like everything's dropping.
Here's something that just already came. Colossus 1, the first giga cluster powering AI was just turned on after only 122 days. So think about in a single quarter from groundbreaking to full operation, XAI put out Colossus 1, which is the largest. Is it Colossus 2?
Yeah.
Oh, well, they had a Colossus. Okay. Anyway, the thing I pulled from the newsletter said Colossus 1. So anyway, a new Colossus. irrespective of its denomination. The cluster is designed to power the training of new Gen AI models, including Grok 4. So Grok 4 will be built on top of this Colossus thing. So this is interesting because to get to a gigawatt AI training cluster, OpenAI and Anthropic aren't likely to instantiate one of those for their own training until after this year. So it's going to be another full year, even though Colossus 1 took only 120. It says Colossus 1, but whichever this Colossus is that was turned on, it has taken just 122 days to open it up. And then some additional news on the AI front from Tesla. Tesla is developing a chip, and Musk announced on X that it's ready. It's ready for production, I guess is what he means. But the Tesla AI5 chip is going to be powering some of these data centers for X. And the other thing is, like, X really is impressive. XAI is impressive in some of the ways that they're advancing their own technology. They provide a breakthrough algorithm called mixed precision bridge that lets not Tesla AI5 chips, but cheap 8-bit chips that, you know, are like commodities now, perform 32-bit AI rotations with zero precision loss. So this is a new mathematical approach to the management of all of the data that's flowing through an 8-bit chip to make it perform the calculations that are necessary for 32-bit operations. So that's interesting. Let me list, just to give you an idea of the technicality of that. Here's from the announcement about it. The system combines logarithmic compression, pre-computed lookups, Taylor series expansion, high-speed 16-bit packing, AV cache optimization, page detention, attention sinks, sparse tensor acceleration, and quantization-aware training. That lets, for example, using an 8-bit chip, it's allowing an Optimus to run sub 100 watt 8-hour shifts while maintaining long context memory and spatial precision. So this algorithm that X has built is designed, it appears, to be enabling Optimus robots without a really, really expensive super duper chip on board to do all of the things it needs to do using a very inexpensive 8-bit chip.
I'll keep going with news here. I have one here. Now my computer crashed right before we started. I was saying I like barely got in on time for the show. So I lost some of the news stories I had up. I remembered the Go one. I just pulled up another one because I do find this interesting. And I like the way this digitaltrends.com writes this up. So the tagline is Replit's AI can build your mobile apps and push them straight to the App Store. Okay, that second part's the big part. The first part, I don't think anybody would like fall out of their chair to. But one of the roadblocks, if you will, is like getting it like quite literally onto your phone. Like I can build it, but like how do I get past the Apple whatever's right? So I love the way they talk about this. We've all been there. You're sitting around with friends, maybe after a couple of drinks, and somebody says, you know what would make a great app? You get excited, you brainstorm the features, you may even check if the domain is taken. Yeah, I've been there. Hi, I'm Brian. I've bought too many domains. And then nothing happens. The dream dies right there because, well, nobody at the table actually knows how to code. Learning Swift or hiring a developer is expensive and hard, so the idea just gathers dust. So they're saying that, like, they're saying that this isn't just ChatGPT with broken Python script. They're saying it will make you an app and usually will get you on the App Store within 48 hours from a text prompt. And so this is interesting. It says it'll help you connect through Stripe. It'll help you do all the things you need to do. I've never personally put an app on an app store, so I know there's a step and it has to be approved by, as they call it in the article here, Apple is the bouncer. You know, now I know there's the entire other Android store and stuff like that. But since Apple is notoriously a little sticky about how they let things on, what did he say? I missed it. He may push you to
Said,
Apple. Your next time we leave a little inspection with little
and
inspection.
meaning explanation. He clarified.
Explanation. Yeah. Oh, I got it. Yeah. Yes. So I don't know, Garrett, because I'm with you on that. And that's what I've always heard is that that's not as easy as it sounds. Replic's claiming I guess maybe they feel like they've sort of done a Claude Code-ish type thing where they've sort of figured out the right wording, which could be very true. They could know how to set up an application. Hell, in my neighborhood, if you know the right template to submit me wanting to rip a couple of my plants out of my front yard and get that approved by the committee that approves that stuff in my neighborhood, you have a higher chance. Or a fence. I must see a ton about fences. My fence thing got rejected. I don't know why. Right, same kind of thing on a hyper local level, right? But if you know sort of the bound, you know what to say, and you know the few words that it's looking for, maybe so. So obviously, the big elephant in the room here is that it says the scary part. I'll just tell you what it says because it's well written. Then there's the scary part: security. A cybersecurity firm called Tenzai, Tenzai, recently looked into this and found that the apps built by these vibe coder agents are often riddled with holes. Shocker, right? That this coding that you're putting out there isn't sound. And especially if you're like connecting it to Stripe and trying to take people's money, you're going to very much start being in trouble in terms of how that stuff works, obviously data privacy and things like that. So is this, it would be a great app and you want to see it show up on the App Store and show your friends and be like, hey, you can download this and money's not transferring. That's one level, I suppose. But I do agree that I don't know if Replit would necessarily be in trouble, but ooh boy, you better be careful with just throwing apps out there and having people trade money for it, whether it's just a one-time fee or, a subscription model or something like that. You better be sure you got your I's dotted and your T's crossed with that stuff, that you don't get in trouble.
So that's actually what Karl was talking about on Friday, maybe on Friday's show, right? Like take it 80% there and then have an actual dev look at it, identify security challenges or those kinds of things.
Yeah, Jeff says on here,
money.
Spend a week building an app, spend 3 weeks convincing Apple to let you publish it. Yeah, that's what I've always heard. So it sounds like Jeff or maybe Gareth and others have done this before. And then Greg is saying, okay. When anyone can create an app for whatever, why would one need an app store? That's also a good point if you're able to circumvent the actual app store. If it's just as easy to leave it as a shortcut, which we all used to do back in the day, you have to start thinking about like, where is the value in that if it could just be spun up in other ways, which a lot of people would love because Apple takes a cut. So that's always been the big deal between a lot of the major players is like, what is Apple's take on that app store? It is a very, very big revenue driver for them because I have heard in the past, I don't want to misquote this, but I think I've heard in the past it's upwards of 30%. And there's been some big issues with that, that chunk of money that Apple requires. My take on it is, hey, they built the App Store and the ecosystem. They can do as they please, and you can decide whether you want to be in that Apple, you want to be in the App Store or you don't, I suppose. Okay, so, and then people commented, wait, hold on, you have to get the bushes in your front yard approved? Yes. I live in a community. And so I live in a community that has an HOA and a CDD, and it also has a lot of rules. But, as with anybody, I choose to live in that kind of thing because it also makes my neighbors follow the rules. So I do not have to worry about neighbors with polka dot houses, which I have actually seen in my life. I don't know if you guys ever have. Has nothing to do with AI, but back in Georgia, I literally saw somebody in a non-regulated neighborhood who got mad and they literally painted polka dots on their house.
I was going to say that's definitely a Florida thing, but
no,
apparently
Georgia.
not.
It was Georgia. Yeah, it was a mad neighbor. And they, whatever. I don't remember the whole situation, but they were mad and they literally painted polka dots on their houses, and everybody knew it as the polka dot house. But you got to think to yourself, eesh. So Teach his own. Not everybody wants to live in a neighborhood like me. Totally get that. So yes, I'm not surprised to hear some of you guys in the comments be like, "Wait, what?" So it's fine. Okay, so that was my second news story. What else? What else do you guys have? Usually over the weekend, there's a few of them that come out. So what else caught your guys' radar?
Bandcamp has banned purely AI generated music from its platforms. Bandcamp is
Bandcamp?
It's a popular place where you put your album, right? So you co-hosts know that my vocal improv group put out an album, and that was delivered on Bandcamp. So, so it's sort of more an indie publisher kind of thing. But if you're doing indie music, you got to go somewhere else. And if you're doing soul indie AI generated music, you got to go somewhere else.
So yesterday, I have an ear infection. So I was at a minute clinic yesterday getting some antibiotics. And anyway, while I was there talking to the very lovely nurse practitioner, she brought up AI generated music. I don't remember exactly how it came up, but you know how we always talk like this show, we're in the bubble, our folks, we sort of stay in the bubble. Well, I was clearly not in the bubble. I was at a minute clinic at my local CVS. And she was saying that she was somewhere with her mom, and she said it was on Spotify. I don't know. I mean, certainly Spotify has AI thing. And she was like, I was just loving this song. And then I heard another song, I love it. And her son, who I think, if I got the impression, was probably in his 20s, was like, Mom, that's fully AI. And she was just telling me that like, it was just that, and that like, no, it's not. This is clearly somebody I like. And then I was like, well, what do you feel? I was just curious. I was like, well, what do you feel about that? Like, what's your reaction to that? Are you mad that it's AI and you liked it? I'm like, or like, where do you stand on this? Because she just generally said, AI makes me nervous, and I hear that a lot. We all do, right? And she said, no, it's just that I want to know. And I thought, that's kind of the answer to a lot of the AI stuff, right? I just want to know. Tell me it's an AI ad. Tell me it's an AI written book. Tell me it's an AI created full 2-hour movie. I just want to know. As the consumer, I want to know what I'm looking at. And if you can trick me, I think I should have the right to know that that's in fact not real people or whatever. She said, but I don't think it really changes the fact that it spoke to me. I really liked the voice, the AI generated guy's voice, and that I really did in fact like the song. So she said, I don't really have a problem with that. I liked it. I have a problem that I didn't know ahead of time what I was listening to. And I thought, hey, that's a great way to sort of look at that,
Well, but didn't you say that they were like out somewhere hearing a song?
She said it was on Spotify. So she gave the impression that it had just literally played. Well, here's the thing. How do I know that's never happened to me? So maybe it has. Maybe it in fact has. I typically, I like music. I typically have my own curated list and stuff. But on Spotify, when your list ends, it does start playing suggested songs. And I suppose there has been a moment that I did not know happened where one of the songs in that suggested list was in fact AI. How Spotify is handling that right now and how they do that, I don't know. But anyway, that was her story. And I just found that to be very interesting, honestly. Andy, what else you got as far as news?
Okay, I've been wanting for a few days now to bring this one forward. There's a fellow named Gary Marcus who's a critic and a skeptic of the hype of AI, and has been a long time, very serious technical observer and developer of AI, who believes that LLMs have inherent flaws that make them really not only unable to achieve AGI, but they also have all these problems that have really potentially serious complications in society. Just witness the incredible disruption of labor markets that are happening among knowledge workers. At the same time as all these big data centers are being built, there's a shortage of blue collar workers to support that kind of build out. And so there's an enormous shift that's having to happen in what the employment is, for the humans in society. Well, he published in a newsletter of his just last week, he published commentary on a pair of legal scholars who wrote in the Boston University School of Law publication system. I'll name the two legal scholars: Woodrow Hartzog, who's from the Stanford Law School Center for Internet and Society, and also Jessica Silbey, who's from Boston University School of Law. Okay, this legal essay that he refers to and surfaces to attention in a way that the media is not surfacing, argues that AI acts as a destructive force against key civic institutions, specifically the rule of law, universities, and a free press, threatening the essential functioning of a democracy. Okay, so there's a full argument that's developed here. And in the sort of foreword to this publication that these two legal scholars put forward, they said that they started out wanting to kind of portray how AI was going to advance society in this. And then just through their research, they ended up having to do a 180 and say, wait a second, I think we have an obligation to say that these key civic institutions, rule of law, universities, and free press, the backbone of democratic life, they're the mechanisms through which complex societies encourage cooperation and stability while also being adaptable to changing circumstances. These institutions typically evolve in the hands of humans, and they're built around transparency, cooperation, and accountability among humans. And they empower individuals who are a part of those institutions, the free press and universities, for example, to take intellectual risks and challenge the status quo, but not dominate the status quo, right? In ways that that happen among the interpersonal relationships of the people who are inside those institutions, and it broadens perspectives for people, and it strengthens shared commitment to civic goals. But AI systems, these scholars argue, have the effect of eroding expertise, short-circuiting decision-making, and isolating people from each other. And those three trends are anathema to the kind of evolution, transparency, cooperation, and accountability that are the foundation of community democratic principles operating in our society. Wow. So anyway, there's some people who are raising some red flags here about what the long-term societal trends are by our dependence, our increasing dependence cognitively. And this goes to the conundrum that you did, by the way, Brian, in the newsletter this weekend, which is, what's going to happen to the cognitive floor that we allow for our next generations? Will they ever have to develop this kind of critical thinking that comes about through this dynamic in our civic institutions? Or will we simply just say, okay, AI can take care of that and I can continue to play my video games?
Yeah, I mean, that conundrum was based around that idea, right? Which is like how every generation goes through this. Just AI is so different, but every generation goes through the, wait, shouldn't you have to learn how to write cursive because I learned how to write cursive? And sometimes you can follow those arguments, and there's some really good logic behind like why the next generation should have to come up. But it is a bit of the uphill both ways in the snow. Every generation likes to look back a little bit and go, I had it harder, than you did or whatever. I think this is one of the early generations, truthfully, where I look back, I look at my daughter and I say, oh, I feel bad for you that you didn't necessarily have some of the tenets of my childhood, which is carefree, outside playing, no screens, right? Like I have no social and stuff. So it's weird. I think that didn't happen to me with my parents, where they said, oh man, when I was a kid, usually it was like, oh my God, you guys have it so much easier. I couldn't do that. And when I talk to my daughter, sometimes it's like, I could do that. And you don't have those same liberties sometimes, right? But it's not set up the same. So when I hear, well, when we looked at the conundrum and the cognitive floor, that's what it was sort of talking about, is like, to your point, Andy, like, are we going to have to accept that some things can and are faithfully done by AI. And at some point, people stop learning how the sausage is made, right? Like, I think Karl was saying that on the show the other day, right? That's not as important because the argument would be like, but wait, hold on. Who then, if everybody stops understanding the cognitive and how things work together, who is there left to go back and fix it? And more of a sort of Max Tegmark, like Prometheus side of it is, that is an understanding worry, but we are probably moving towards a place where the AI is always capable of explaining that process. And then you have to go, well, at what point do we still need people to maintain and hold this inability, whatever, in the general public? I'm not talking about scientists and people who are specialists, just the general public coming up through school. And so that's anyway what the conundrum is about. But back to what you were just talking about, Andy, with the story you just had, I'm just curious, like, do you agree? Like, how do you see this as far as those comments? Because they're interesting, but like, are you seeing it the same way, I guess?
Yeah, I think I agree that there is this force that's underway here. We don't know how humans and or our institutions will react to it, but I can absolutely see the argument that if you say, for example, decide to take away all the research grants for an institution like a university, and that causes a bunch of different deep thinkers around issues to leave the university and go off and find a job, doing electrical installations at data centers. What happens to the sort of collective thought process, and it gets supplanted by and replaced by AI. So AI is going to do, the work, if you will, of this deliberation, but nobody's paying attention to the output of the AI because it's not integrated cooperatively into the society. It's just there if you need it, and it'll think it if you want it to think that. Anyway, so I see that. I can absolutely be afraid of that, especially if there are, let's call them unprincipled operators in the political environment who are accelerating that process to their own gain. That's my biggest fear. I think we're observing that here in the United States right now. Is we're seeing a deliberate intent to empower or legitimize the uneducated, whereas a democracy depends on a totally educated electorate to make wise decisions, and once that's gone, then maybe our only recourse is to depend on whoever's the most powerful to maintain order.
Yeah, I appreciate the thoughts on that. Beth, any thoughts on that? Or I don't know why I'm gonna ask.
Well,
I don't know.
It's no problem. It's interesting, I think, because I think, Andy, what you're talking about missing is the aggregate, is the institution of it, because individually people do push themselves to do all kinds of things, right? Like, we're no longer, I don't know, chasing tigers for food, so some people are rock climbing, right? Like those kinds of things that build skill or get you to something that is like a personal best in a particular direction. But it does seem like we are in a situation where people who still remember the struggle are looking at this and saying, wow, this is amazing. I don't have to struggle anymore. I'm not sure if we move beyond that people won't have a little bit of a backlash and say, no, actually, I want to work really hard in this one particular area. But it may be an individual endeavor and not an institution that has been agreed upon with a civilization.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
yeah, and I think
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here. Let's move on to the brighter side of life. Always look at the bright side of life.
Still a classic by all standards. I need to watch some of those movies again. It's been a while, especially The Life of Brian, which is one of my favorites. I like the Holy Grail, but The Life of Brian is the best. Okay. Any other news stories before we sort of wrap up this segment? I feel like I had one more. Was I gonna? Oh, you know what? The only thing I was going to mention really quick is it's sort of news, but it's like from my side. So I've been talking a lot about obviously the Cloud Code, and I've been running it heavily over this weekend. Downloaded, I think, on Friday. I did build some kind of cool stuff in using Cursor. I was following directions from somebody I was following in a school account, which was great because I could go step by step on that. But I'll be honest with you, everything I've done for the most part has been in Cloud Code Desktop, which I just find a lot of people find much easier. And then creating Cowork too. So one of the news is on that point is Cowork is now still not available for Windows, so I still can't get it. But Cowork immediately became available to the $20 range as well. So if you're on a Mac and you were thinking, oh, I heard about Cowork last week, but I can't touch it because I don't pay the Max plan, that changed. Almost immediately. Like they rolled it out and then rolled it out to the lower level. So if you're paying for any like your mid-tier $20 Claude plan and you're using a Mac, go check it out. Go download Claude for desktop, and you might have Cowork available to you. You should have it available to you.
Yeah, it's on my Claude desktop now, and I haven't changed from that tab since it showed up. There's for what I'm doing on Claude, and I'm working between Claude Code and Claude Cowork. But what I'm using Claude Cowork for are all those little things that I want done on my machine that I don't have time to do. Just last night, I had to go through and evaluate all of the incoming emails that flood my inbox and go to promotions folder and updates folder and all that other stuff, and said, if I haven't opened these in, like the past 3 months, I've never touched them. Click on the unsubscribe link and unsubscribe me for every one of those. Wow. And it took about 45 minutes, and then it came back and said, okay, they're all gone.
My wife needs this immediately in her inbox. I start sweating every time I have to open her inbox in order to get a link for something or whatever. And I go, I don't, okay, I got to get out of here. I can't handle that. We're definitely the family of, I can't handle anything showing like a 1. I had to turn off all that stuff on my phone because I can't handle seeing 1s or 2s or notifications. It bothers me and it honestly distracts me. So I turned that off so I can't see it on my screens. My wife will happily have 245 sitting next to some bubble of some app. I'm like, 245 of what? I need to know how to clear it. So 2 totally different types of people in my house. I have that.
Let me add something on Cowork, by the way.
Yeah, do it.
Beth, you do it.
No. I'm going to tell people how to see their usage so you don't freak out if you have used a bunch. And you're going to do Cowork. This works for that as well. Down in by your initials, for me, it's the lower left on the Mac app. You're going to go to settings, and under settings, you're going to go to usage. And it says this current session, I have 6% used, and it resets in 1 hour and 20 minutes. When you are deep into Cloud Code, you are going to want to know that information. So.
Yeah, and Andy, add your thing, and then I'll add an extra thing here as well.
Yeah, Beth, repeat where you go to see that. It's in Claude settings.
Yep. So you go to your, when you're logged into Claude, you're going to see your initials somewhere. Me, it's the lower left. You click that, go to settings, and then go to usage. And you can see how much you've used.
And it combines usage of Claude and Claude Code, because I've seen that alert sometimes. When I ran into a limit a couple nights ago with Claude, it said, it added, as you reached your limit, you'll be able to come back on at 7 p.m. And then it said Claude Code and Claude usage is combined, right?
Yes,
so
because
and I'm using them both at the same time. So
what you're being measured on is your usage of the model. So when you use Claude, you're using Opus. When I think I'm using Opus. I don't know why anybody else is not. So yes, that's what it's doing. And we all knew this was going to happen. I did become a max 1 month subscriber over the weekend because that just at the $100 level. But I played with running sub agents at the same time, and boy, is that exciting! But also eats up.
Yeah,
eats up
takes
sure.
some power. Okay, so code work. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot, Andy. Go ahead. No, you go, and then I'll go.
Okay, so co-work is getting persistent knowledge bases. Now, this is a persistent knowledge base isn't just one that stays there. In the Claude sort of coding environment and co-work environment, these knowledge bases can be updated by Claude. So they are files, in effect, that automatically update with new facts, preferences, and decisions that you've made. So you can basically create what amounts to a Claude.md file for your co-work instance that carries on, but also you can provide it with instructions that cause it to distill and progress the data that's in those files. And so Claude will check those knowledge bases, proactively when it's responding to a question that you ask it or a task that you assign it. And it brings those capabilities, this sort of Claude.md file instruction set that you can do in Claude Code. It brings that to non-coders. So coworkers don't have to go about the way you've gone about, Brian, as we've watched you build this new application. You created these documents that are in the Claude Code folder set. Yep. And now you don't have to do that in cowork. Yeah. It's going to do that automatically for you. And you can also add specific documents that you want to have maintained by Claude there as well.
It's super. I mean, look, I haven't used CoWork yet, so I've only used Claude Code, the desktop. And obviously one of the trade-offs of desktop is that you don't get all the functions and features of when I run it in Cursor, right? And by the way, Cursor's just, you could do VS Code, you could do it other ways through the terminal, but I was using it in Cursor because the video that I was following, that's how he set it up. So I thought, well, fine. And Cursor is like, I know people think of Cursor as like a lovable whatever, but Cursor, just like the terminal, is free. So that it's not like there's an additional expense there. What I was going to say is that you're not as limited as I think, not you guys, I'm just saying generally, people aren't as limited with desktop as maybe they are initially thinking. I would highly suggest starting there if you're going to start somewhere with Claude Code. It can be a little tricky. Beth, you've pointed this out. It's certainly plausible. I certainly got through it, but I did run into several issues on 2 different computers with just trying to get Claude Code to work in Cursor, right? There was hoops to jump through, and either Claude Code could help me with it, or no, I guess it wouldn't have. Gemini would help me with the problem to finally get Claude Code, but I had some I had authentication issues because I was using the API, whatever. Desktop is like dumb simple, right? Because that's what it's meant to be. So a lot of people talked about Ralph or Ralph Wiggum, which are technically 2 different things, but you've heard Ralph probably brought up a lot, which is just the idea of there's really 2 sides of it. One is like just a to your point, Andy, a log of where we are in the process, right? Which is great. So all I did was give Claude Code I found a blog on it describing in detail what Ralph does. And then I gave that information to Claude Code and I said, just build the best version you can for desktop for this. And it went off and built the hell out of it with the documents and all that kind of stuff. And so there's a file called Ralph in there, MD, and it knows that, hey, as we're moving through this, now it also updates GitHub. But as we're moving through this, I need to consistently be telling Ralph where it is, which is great because as people pointed out, you are going to run into context limits. And so when I was at the end of one of my phases over yesterday, what I was able to quickly do is spin up a brand new conversation with Claude Code. I have a simple command that says, read this file, this file, this file, and tell me where we left off. And it immediately picks up right where we are. Everybody knows the pain of not having that. If you've the musical thing I'm working on, I typically do through Gemini, although I'm kind of wishing I'm doing that in Claude as well, Claude Code. So that'll be a transition I make down the road. But I got to a point where it was clear that Gemini no longer really understood and it was making mistakes. It would use I was just seeing it. Like you could see it live. It would use old characters' names. It would use old scenes that I had already told it that it replaced. It started to lose its way, and I had to start. So painfully so, I created a full Google Doc that is essentially the script with all the songs, and now I use that as my basic memory, right? But that's a pain in the butt, and nobody really wants to do that in Cloud Code and this Ralph thing. My point to it is, though, I literally told Cloud Code, I don't know how to do this, you do this, but here's what I think it is, and you go figure it out, right? As opposed to me like downloading a what would you guys call it? It's not like, what is Ralph if you're doing it through the terminal? What is that? An extension? Plugin. Okay. So I wasn't doing it as a plugin. I was literally, I guess for lack of a better word, hard coding lines of code to replicate that feature. And for my purposes, it's worked just fine. Karl has put out stuff. Excuse me. 1 second. Excuse me.
And actually what you did, you didn't make it a plugin, but when you download a plugin, it is files of code that just say what you just did.
Sort of did it the long way, right? Now, Karl has pointed out, on his TikTok videos and stuff, that also one of the things you want to do is try to get Claude to learn from any mistakes and actually get better over time. And I have not implemented that. What I wanted to share really quick is just one cool thing that I saw. I mean, of the many things I've done over the weekend, I've just before the show, I completed actually all 45 tasks through 4 phases of this build that I'm working on. And one of the things I wanted to share is that during the process, I'm working with Superbase and stuff like that. Now it's all run fairly easily for me. Watch what's going on. I'm basically sitting as a project manager. I'm watching things going on. At this point, it's written, I haven't gotten the last update. It's well over 10,000 lines of code and well over 100 files that Claude has created. And I started with one file, a PRD, and then I created a TRD, a technical requirement document. We just talked about that on the show. I thought, I need to have that. And from those initial cells, they have replicated and duplicated, and now we have this whole system of stuff. And Beth and Andy and anybody else that's working on this project with me, and monitoring it, can now do that live through the Git. It's private, so other people can't find it, but you guys are able to look at that and see where the process is and things like that. I have had it spun up local servers, and I've actually been able to test some of the features and functionality of the website. Very basic at this point because I just want to see it work. Ultimately, the search feature has to work at the level that I'm expecting, and that's a big unknown. The thing I wanted to share, though, that I thought was very cool was Cloud Code needed to make some SQL updates to Superbase. Now, because of 2 iterations ago with building this sort of like Project Bruno in N8N, I was often making SQL updates. And so I got pretty good at least understanding how to do that. There's just a SQL text editor or editor inside of Superbase, and it does all sorts of things from creating tables, deleting tables, and everything in between. And Cloud Code goes, as predicted, it tells me, it says, as predicted, I have some security blocks, and I'm not going to be able to do this for Superbase. You need to do this. I'm going to need you to run some Superbase SQL command, and I'm also going to need you to create 2 additional tables for X, Y, and Z, right? Here's what blew me away. That would have been fine. Had Cloud Code in the chat told me, do this, then do this, then do this, that would have been fine. No, it created a new HTML that I opened up in my browser that had full color coding links. When I clicked on the link, it took me exactly to the SQL editor in my project, like one click, exactly where I needed to go. Took me exactly where to build the tables. It had copy this code. This is the SQL you need. It gave me a color coded, can't miss, like firefighter proof, as we used to call it, directions. And Cloud Code came back to me and said, just go do that. It'll take you less than 5 minutes to do that. Let me know when it's done, and I will test and validate that it in fact happened on that end. And I thought, this is different. And I turned to him just this morning, and I said, because like we're off today, and I said, here's the thing. Nothing I have done in Cloud Code since I started this weekend building this 10,000 line code or whatever has really required me to be good at AI prompting, good at AI in general. I said, nothing. I could literally, I said, babe, I could literally hand you Claude Code and say, just start asking it for the things that you want and see where it goes. You do not have to have any prior experience. Sure, you're going to run into some issues along the way that may require additional steps, or like me, hold on a second, let me go over to Gemini and figure out what it's asking me for. Gemini explains it to me. I go back to Claude Code and I'm like, I got it. I understand what you mean here, So I'm not burning through the Claude Code credits. But I said, I am just sitting here watching. I watched both football games yesterday because they were both excellent. So I will admit I had about 7 hours watching football yesterday. Very happy to do so on my Sunday. It was rainy and cold here. And I had my computer on the side, and me and Claude Code just had fun together. And as of this morning, I was pushing it hard this morning because I wanted to reach my limit purposefully. So it resets at 1 p.m. today. So it'll reset at 8 p.m. today. So I get 3 shots today at Claude Code, and that was important to me to maximize the day. So I did that. But my point to all of this is I don't have to be good at AI to do this. I'd love to tell you, you're going to need somebody like me who knows how to prompt. And the reality and sort of the sobering moment of this is, no, you do not. I do not need to know anything about my 2 years of previous. I'm sure it helps. I'm sure it helps that I have understanding and knowledge of some of this AI stuff. But the reality is I can easily hand it off to somebody else who doesn't really know anything. And I'll say, look, it's going to help you set up some files. I can help you get like from 0 to 1. And Claude Code is going to pretty much walk you through everything else.
Yeah, I would agree that Claude can write prompts. And we've learned how to leverage the AI models to take an idea that we want for a prompt and produce the full prompt. So understanding how prompts work is important, but actually writing them out in the detail that we did with markdown format, etc., that was the pre-calculator, important cognitive work that we did to understand the process. I want to just challenge you with one little thing, which is, what if when you got to that step where Claude said, look, I can't do this, but you can, and here's what I want you to do, and gave you a very, very facile method to do it.
Yeah.
If you were working in Claude Desktop and you were working in the code tab of that, and you got to that point, I think you could, if you have the Claude Chrome extension operating, you could click over to the cowork one, copy and paste that over and say, do this, and then go back to coding. And it would have gone about doing those things that you had to do in Superbase.
Yeah, you're right.
Then we wouldn't know this great story, which is amazing. And I'm like, does Claude know that you were a firefighter and needed
things color coded? Yeah. For sure. I do. Look, I didn't. Here's the thing. I did not ask for it. I did not suggest that it help me out with that. In its ability to work through it, it decided that this would be the least friction route to getting SQL. Because to be fair, writing SQL in Superbase would to the uninitiated be a little hesitant. You'd be like, whoa, where and do what? So fair. Claude Code could have just given it to me and I would have known exactly where to go to do the two things it asked me to. I did not need the HTML, but that's me. That it didn't figure out where I was in my AI journey. It literally gave me something that literally anybody else could do. And I was like, well, these links won't work. And I'll be damned, man. You pressed the blue one and the blue one took me directly to the SQL. And I was like, but it's probably not in my project. Yes, it is. It took me exactly because it had all the API connectors. It knew exactly the URL to write for that clickable button to take me exactly because it knew it has access to the Superbase. So of course it knows exactly how to get me to the right page. But I will tell you, as smart as I am, the whole time I was like, it probably won't get me all the way there.
Because it hasn't up till now, right? It hasn't up till now.
Yes, correct.
While I've been working in Lovable and using Superbase as our new application does, I enjoyed learning how to use Superbase given the guidance, not at that time by Claude, but by, well, I guess it was effectively by Claude, because Lovable used at that time Sonnet 4, as the agent. So the agent would tell me exactly what I needed to do over in Supabase, and then I would open up Supabase. And so I got familiar with, how simple Supabase is. One of the reasons people choose Supabase is it's very easy, and you don't need to know what the SQL commands are, because you just ask Claude to generate them, and then you cut and paste them and put them in. But I believe we've now gone past that to the point where you can just tell Claude and its sub-agents, in effect, to go and do it for you. And this is back to the question of, do the next generations of people learning these AI technologies, do they lose the cognitive foundations that we built by having to at least be told what to do and then go and mechanically do it, as compared to, okay, now I can just tell the agent to do it?
Well, you can turn on learn mode.
What's that?
You can turn on learn mode, right? You can you can do the ask user questions tool, right? So it's pulling things out of you, it's just a different way of getting to those things. But yes, you could also just go
about learn mode,
okay,
because I don't know anything about learn mode. Tell me what that is.
It is in Cloud Code CLI command line interface. I will see whether it's in desktop or not, but I think so.
Well,
in desktop, you can say teach me as I'm doing this.
Chat and ask questions about it for sure.
Yeah, and by the way, you could very quickly create kind of like that pseudo plugin, Beth, in Cloud Code Desktop, and basically I want to don't do anything. Always, I could say for my project, after every phase, give me a write-up on what happened and do it in plain language so I understand what just happened. Now, it already gives me a pretty good summary, and I'm able to follow that just by watching what it gives me. But you could easily say, I want to learn along the way. I don't want you to just blindly do this. I want to understand why it's happening. And Cloud Code would happily, break it down for you. You're going to burn through a couple more credits, but if you're trying to learn, that is not a bad way to do it. I want to bring up really quick here, because we are kind of on time. Now, I know we said we were going to talk about ads, but you know what? We'll leave that for tomorrow's show, because we did get a bunch of y'all's comments on it. And I think that's a bigger conversation. I don't want to shortchange it. But the reason I say that is because I do want to take a second here. Now, I got to go back through the comments. From what I'm guessing, and Beth, you may be able to know this faster than me. Okay, hold on. Gareth is the guest speaker in AI Salon today at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, if I'm getting that right. If I'm getting that wrong, Gwen or somebody, let me know that I just said that wrong. I'm trying to read through the comments. And then Greg was like, wait, what, at 4:30? Yep. So at 4:30 p.m., Gareth, who's one, if you don't know Gareth, you should be in our community so you can meet Gareth and everybody else, and go to the dailyishowcommunity.com and join it. What are you doing? Get in that Slack community. The Cloud Code one, by the way, is awesome. I need to get in there more. Gareth and a whole bunch of other people. Jeff Spalding's done some amazing things in there, some things he's built. You definitely need to be in that Cloud Code community, or that channel of our community. So anyway, Gareth is one of our very long time followers and supporters, and we love him to death. And so anyway, he will be talking in AI Salon. Beth, do you have any additional information about that, or maybe how people would, if they wanted to go listen to Gareth, how might they do that?
So you're going to go to the AI Salon, which is aisalon.mn.co/events. And it is the top event today. And I will post a link in our chat, but Gwen is also going to post the link in our community.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Gwen, for bringing that up. Awesome, Gareth. If I don't catch it live, I will catch it on the replay. But I think that's really, really cool. So yes.
What's the time again?
4:30 p.m. Pacific.
Okay. For you. 4:30 for you.
Perfect for you, Andy.
7:30 for me and Brett.
For me, it's national championship game time. But I love Gareth, and I will definitely watch it in replay with Gwen as well. But I need to see Indiana play Miami tonight. So I can't help it. It's the last college football game of the season, So
the AI and business event. So that's if you're interested in how AI is impacting business, definitely look for that.
Very cool. Awesome. All the things. Look, guys, all the things you can be part of. If you love this show, well, look, like and subscribes help us. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Wherever you are, whether you're saving us on Spotify and you're listening to us or YouTube or otherwise, that stuff helps. It helps get the word out to other people. We don't talk a lot about, growth and stuff like that. But the reality is we grow. We're doing very well on Spotify. We continue to do well on YouTube. And it's through your guys' interactions that makes it so other people can also find us. And of course, we appreciate that. But what I would also say is don't forget to go to the community because, look, there's lots of people doing great stuff. Anne comes on Tuesdays typically. I imagine she'll be here tomorrow and talks a little bit about what's going on in the AI Salon, which is another great resource. So if you are sort of passively listening to this show and thinking, I really like what these guys are talking about, or, well, they talk about Claude Code and I learned a thing or two, whatever, it can be passive and you can just listen to us. But if you want to be active, if you want to be part of this, if you imagine yourself starting to build in maybe some areas, or maybe you want to build that AI, that next Apple app and have 1,000 people download it for $3. I mean, this is what we're doing and talking about, and you will have a ton of resources by just joining the community and continuing to engage with the show. So I hope you do that. And of course, yes, the Conundrum episode, which we mentioned, that comes out on Saturdays. And then the newsletter goes out on Sundays. The Conundrum episode you can just find on our podcast platforms because it's audio only, so we don't bother with YouTube anymore with that one. And then the newsletter, well, you would just go to the Daily AI Show community. Nope, thedailyAIshow.com, which is just our basic landing page, and it's horrible. Don't come at us. We know we have to fix it. But there is a link on there to join the newsletter. You can do that there. Okay, did I miss anything else, guys?
No, Brian is actively fixing it right now. We're just not saying it to the public. So
here's the thing. I did, and I started, and then I got really excited about the YouTube side of it, and I diverted. So, yes,
right. Maybe Andy and I are actively fixing it. We'll see.
You guys have the code, so you're certainly capable of fixing it, and just maybe diminishing the search feature for now because, frankly, we just need a better website. So that's that. All right. And Gwen liked the comic in the newsletter. Yeah. And I think she reposted it in the community. So if you didn't catch the newsletter, you can go catch it in the community. It was about Claude Code. It was just having fun. Thanks, everybody. We'll let it go for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. And we'll see you. Bye.